Hey everyone, it's Johnny and welcome to episode 73 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here with my good friend Nicolas Gregoriades from the Journey podcast and the founder of the Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood.
Hi Johnny, good to be here again, bud.
Dude, I'm really glad that you're back in Chiang Mai. I wanted to have you on today to ask you how much money you're making selling books, but at the last second I decided let's change the topic and let's talk about happiness.
I'm really glad you did that because I'm not making much money selling books. And it probably would have disappointed everyone.
No, it's part of the journey. I mean, can we quickly talk about that? How much money are you making selling books?
I probably make about $1,500 a month selling through the various channels, through my sales page and through Amazon. Cool thing is that there's no real costs involved, so that's pretty pure passive income, which is cool.
Have you ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki?
Yeah, it's one of the first wealth-related self-development books that I ever read. I was probably about 20 or 21 years old when I read that.
It was definitely my first one, and at the time it was a bit over my head where I didn't know what to invest in. I knew I wanted to have passive income. I knew I wanted to have these things, but I had no idea how. And it wasn't enough information. I didn't have the courage to go out and buy rental properties, but it did give me that mindset of, you know what, I do want passive income. And I remember looking at a list of what is passive income, and I remember seeing book royalties as one. And at the time, it just went over my head thinking, there's no possible way I would ever write a book, especially get one published and make money from it. Did you ever have that experience, or how did you know that you can do this?
That's interesting because I've been thinking about Rich Dad Poor Dad a lot lately. I realized after reading that book that passive income was really the only income I was interested in. In fact, if on this journey I've been on for the last 10 or 15 years, I guess, if someone had said to me, I'll give you a job paying you $30,000 a month, but you're not going to be able to ever earn passive income in your life, I probably would have turned them down because I'm just not interested in having a job at all in any way. And as I said, the only income I'm really interested in is passive income. It's not to say I don't earn income in other ways. I do, but I'd rather have $1,000 in passive income than $5,000 in income that's derived from manual labor of me pulling a lever or doing something else that's non-passive.
That's a very nice mind shift, because I'm sure, like when I started, I would have happily pulled a lever to make $2,000 a month, especially if I can do it from Thailand or from my laptop. And I think a lot of people are kind of in that boat right now where they're like, well, I'm happy to click something or take a survey online and make $15 an hour or whatever it is. And unfortunately, those things are almost always scams. I think almost anything that online that sounds too good to be true, and like, for example, like, don't visit these sites because I'm almost 100% sure they're scam sites. But there's one called like the $15 click or something, where they give you $15 every time you click one of their links, one of their ads. And your only job is to be on that site for a certain amount of time. And that way it looks like there's a lot of engagement. So your job would be click the site, and then you have to be on it and read everything. And, well, I guess you don't have to read it, but you have to pretend you're reading it. And you have to click on at least 3 things before you can go to the next one. And they say they will pay you $15 every time you do it. But the caveat or the catch to it is they don't pay you until you've had $7,000 in your credit. And I promise you, they've never paid anyone. I mean, it's one of those crazy things where it gets a lot of people in it, because people are like, well, I'll trade my time for money. My time's not worth anything. What are your thoughts on that?
There's a few things that come to mind when you mention that. The first is having been someone that's been selling products and programs on the internet for the past couple of years. I'm always exposed to these programs and courses and books of people claiming to know how, or be able to give you a formula that will help you sell more and do better. And I've got to the point now where I don't even involve myself in that stuff anymore, because I've realized that inevitably it's about screwing people over. Those systems they're not about providing value or good products to your customers. It's just about scamming people in one way or another. And internet marketing, I don't know, it's been a very fine line for me, because on one side of the equation, I want to make money and I want to be successful, but on the other side, I don't ever want to become one of these scumbags who basically all they're about is selling stuff and growth and just getting every single dollar they can out of everyone and sending them to clickbait scams and putting them through formulas. And I don't know, I think it's almost like a disease within the internet marketing community, and I just don't want any part of that, man. But at the same time, I know my products are good and I want to sell them, so you got to kind of dip your toes in a little bit just to see what works with regards to the psychology of sales and stuff. But at the same time, you have to be very careful because it's a slippery slope.
So I agree that there are, crazy things out there that I want nothing to do with, but there's also, things like, let's say an email autoresponder. For the longest time, I did not want to have one. It just wasn't my thing. It felt a bit impersonal, number one. But second, it just seemed like this crazy, I don't know, 'cause I watched, videos of how to make a good email autoresponder. And they'll say things like, okay, first you want to talk about some irrelevant thing, like how this cuckoo clock made me $1,000 or something like that. And then you want to basically hold that over their head so they have to watch the whole 60-minute video. And even with podcasts, if you listen to most podcasts, they always tell you everything that's going to be in the podcast right in the first 30 seconds.
Then you listen to a 5-minute infomercial before you even start hearing
about it. Then you have this long commercial, and then you stay onto it because you want to get to the end where they reveal what they had kind of alluded to, or you want to get to the if I started this podcast saying Nick's going to share his 3 award-winning tips
to make you $1 billion in 24 hours by clicking 3 different links,
but you have to wait to the end of the podcast to get these tips. Let's go to commercial break. This is our sponsor for the week. And the thing is, it's crazy because I understand why they do it. They want engagement. They want people to stay to the end of the show. They also want people to listen to sponsors. And none of these are bad things. And in the perfect ideal world, I'm in this fairy tale world where I assume every single person who listens to the podcast is going to like it so much. They're going to get so much value out of it. And they're going to know and trust that it's going to be a good episode, they're going to learn something from it, that they're going to stay and just listen to it regardless. And I almost maybe fantasize that, people, that people will listen to it, almost like watching a movie without a trailer, and then enjoy it more because they can see kind of how it unfolds without having any idea what it's going to be like. But in reality, the podcasts that are number 1 on iTunes, on the top 10 or top 50 chart on iTunes, they all follow that formula. So obviously it works.
Yeah. So that comes back to what I mentioned earlier, which is it's a fine line about what's effective and what goes beyond your personal ethical and moral code. Because as you said, these things work. I mean, I use an email autoresponder because I know it works. Whereas this other guy, I'm going to really do my very best not to mention names on the show, but another guy whose email autoresponder sequence I happened to be on, and who I was quite impressed and interested in his sales funnel and his whole process. One of the emails I got from him was a picture of him with his newborn baby girl at the hospital, and the subject of the email was greetings from baby, I don't know, Jessica, whatever her name was. And then in brackets it said, and a last minute free deadline thingy.
Oh my God.
And so basically there were pictures of him in the hospital with his wife and kids, his wife and newborn kid. And what he was trying to do at the end of the email is make a quick sale. And I just found that morally reprehensible, man. I mean, that was disgusting. There's no way you can cut that and claim to me that that's a good thing to do. He was basically trying to get people to think, oh, this is a cool family man, and he's just like me, He's just had a newborn kid, and he was trying to identify with people and then sell them something basically prostituting out his 3-day-old baby, and that's fucked up, dude. I don't want to be that kind of person, but at the same time I want to make money. So again, you have to walk that line, and I think the question you have to always keep asking is, number one, am I really providing value with what I'm trying to sell these people? And you know if you're providing value or not, or if you're just scamming people. And the second one is, what does my gut say about this? Do I feel good sending this out? And you know deep down whether or not like what you're sending out is bullshit. So that's how I try to work within the system.
I like it. All right, and I think so. Let's get back on the happiness trip, right? So I think right now, both of us have kind of evolved a lot, both income wise and pretty much our lives since the last time you were on the show. Nick was one of the first guys I met when I moved to Thailand. I think I met him in 2009 or something, when I was training Muay Thai at Tiger Muay Thai. And we had a blast. And we had just started with making money online. And it literally took us years to figure it out. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I like sharing stuff and I like interviewing people and picking their brains and finding out what actually works. Because I guarantee that if I had listened to interviews like this back in 2009 or 2008 when I was at Tiger Muay Thai training, and then I was exhausted afterward laying in the hammock, I would have learned how to monetize my blog and make money from selling books and all these things way earlier. So now we're both making enough money online. We're comfortable. We can travel. It's location dependent. Are you happy?
Definitely, bud. I mean, I wake up every day and I'm just so grateful that my life has this particular set of circumstances at this point. I was just saying this to someone else. We were sitting at a restaurant somewhere and I just said, man, do you realize how lucky we are to be here, to be sitting in Thailand, just hanging out, like making money passively, or while we sleep, we can wake up every day and see that we made some money. And then he said to me, yeah, we're lucky, but we made it happen as well. We hustled to make this happen. And I think it's a combination of both. So I'm grateful, and I'm just enjoying myself very much, to answer your question.
So I think I'm definitely grateful, but I'm not excited anymore. I'm not happy in the sense where it's that kind of... Now, for example, when I first started making sales on my dropshipping store, every morning, if I would wake up, the first thing I would do is I would check my phone. And if I had a sale, I would be so grateful and so happy. And I could not wait until I could open my laptop and fulfill it. And now I would say, at least now for the last 3 to 6 months, I don't even look at my phone anymore. It's almost pointless, because I either kind of just expect there to be something, or I don't really care. And I want to change that mindset, because even though I've been doing it now for 2 years, and I know it's a system that's worked, and I put in the work and effort to pretty much automate it so it works, I still feel like I should be more grateful and happy every time someone every time someone buys something and makes a sale.
I don't know exactly how you'd get over that, but it's a natural progression of things. It's almost like when you start making more money, your lifestyle raises to soak up that extra money. So you start eating in more expensive restaurants or just spending more money on yourself. It's the same kind of thing with things that bring you happiness and excitement in your life. Soon they become the norm, and I guess you start taking them for granted. But for me, I use a little Jedi mind trick, and that is I just compare my life now with the vast majority of, or the experience, the human experience of the vast majority of the planet now, and in particular in the past. Like to be able to just get on a plane and go wherever I want, or to be able to wake up anytime I want, or to be able to go to a restaurant and sit down and order pretty much anything I want without worrying too much about how much it costs, is something that a tiny portion of this planet gets to enjoy. An absolutely tiny portion of this planet. And 200 years ago, only a prince could even consider having a lifestyle of this level. It just was impossible for the average human being. So I just constantly remind myself how good it is and how bad it could be, and how shitty it was at some other points in my life. And I just keep referencing those things, and I try to enjoy the present moment, and it definitely helps. So maybe you could use something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. Because, I mean, to be honest, maybe it's just because I'm tired. I'm like physically and mentally tired from traveling so much the last couple of months. But now that I'm back in Chiang Mai, and I just want to just sit on the couch and like watch a movie and like almost kind of just, do what I did when I was back in the US working a 9-to-5 job. And a lot of you that have a normal job or had one recently, you guys can kind of identify where you're so exhausted from your day-to-day life that you just cannot wait to sit on the couch, and you almost want to order a pizza, order food because you're too lazy to go out, even though you have the option to go eat at these great restaurants that you can finally afford. Even though you could basically hop on a plane tomorrow and just travel wherever you want. I'm at a point right now, and hopefully it's just like, you know what, I'm burnt out a bit from the last 3 months of just being hardcore traveling on my feet, hopping to all these countries. But at the same time, it almost kind of, when I start thinking about, okay, what's the next step? I'm very, very content being where I am right now. And this is the logical step, is to keep scaling my business, keep making more money while keeping my expenses low. I've been pretty good at not keeping up with the Joneses and spending more money as I made more money, which has helped a ton in saving money. And I think that's kind of the reason why I know I'm on a good path anyways, because I have time to work on my businesses while kind of maintaining the things I have already. And all that extra money kind of just goes into a savings account right now. So that I'm really happy with. But,
Don't you find it strange how the less happy you are, the more money you spend?
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
I think that's interesting.
And I think if I was able to... Actually, I don't know, because I have a buddy, Chris, who is finally moving out to Chiang Mai after years of trying to convince him to. And I'm sure I'm going to have him on the podcast because he's a really good example of someone who had a job he hated, started a dropshipping store and started making money from it, and could have moved out here a year and a half ago, and he just never did. And he finally, he's coming a week and a half from now, and finally, I don't know, I think... I'll ask him when he's on the show, but I think he said it was because not only did he get laid off, his boss got laid off. Wow. And they went out to lunch together, and he had talked about, maybe getting another job somewhere or, going back in the field. And his boss was like, what are you talking about? You don't have the responsibilities right now. You don't have kids. You don't have a mortgage. And you already have the side business that's making you a couple $1,000s a month that you can live off of. And you have friends doing this in Chiang Mai. Like, what is stopping you from going? And I think that's when he finally said, okay, let me give it a shot. Mm-hmm. But for most people, they have so many more obstacles to make that first move. Like, what was yours? I mean, how did you even decide to give up everything and come and teach jiu-jitsu?
Well, I traveled a lot anyway, because I just teach jiu-jitsu where I could teach jiu-jitsu wherever I went. So I'd be out of I was basically based in England for 10 years, but during the last few years, especially after I had my qualification of the black belt, I could go teach seminars pretty much wherever I wanted to. So I would already travel 2 to 3 months of the year. But then I remember I was doing a podcast at the time, and that was pretty much the only thing keeping me in London. And when my involvement in that project came to an end, coincidentally, my landlord also decided to raise my rent, or he said, I'm going to have to put your rent up. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I staying in this little apartment, which is, admittedly, it was a nice apartment, but the amount I was paying for it, and just the cost of living in a place like London, and the weather was crappy there, and I was always feeling stressed. And I just said to myself, why am I here? What is the point of being here? There's no reason for me to put myself through this when I could be in Thailand or the States or traveling or back home in South Africa with my family. So I just said, screw it, I'm gonna give up. Or not give up, but give up my place. And I sold all my stuff, or most of my stuff, and I just left. And it's been 2 years now, and it was definitely one of the best things I've done.
How much were you paying for that place?
It was close to £1,000 at the time. So that must be close to $1,700.
Okay.
And then he was probably going to put it up to close to 2,000. And I mean, that's just one thing. Like London, probably paying, food and travel and everything.
Everything's expensive.
Oh man, it's so expensive, and you don't even get that good value for stuff. And I don't know. I just, even now that I could go and live, because my income is adjusted, I could go and live a way better lifestyle in London. I just don't want to, man. There's just no point in doing that for me.
You know, I feel the exact same way. I actually thought briefly. I mean, I always think about it like once a year. Like, oh, should I move back to the U.S.? You know, because that's always kind of the plan in the future, I guess.
Why would you do that to yourself, bro?
It just seems like the logical thing to do is, you know, if I want to have if I want to buy a house and have kids, I should do it in the U.S. And I started thinking about it. I started thinking like, oh, you know, should I move back to LA where my cousin and some of my friends are? Or should I move near San Francisco where my family is? Or should I move somewhere like Austin, Texas, where land's a lot cheaper and there's no state income tax? Or maybe I should move to Florida, you know? And I have all these options. Start kind of weighing everything and pros and cons of each, looking at housing prices. And I started getting kind of overwhelmed almost, like with the responsibilities. And I think we forget a lot of those things. You know?
That's so interesting you say that, because for me, I'm at the point where, I mean, even a mobile phone contract, it's not a responsibility I'm prepared to take on at the moment. I realize this might change one day when I, you know, sort of plug back into regular life. But at the moment, like, why would I want to do that to myself? I see most of the people, not all of them, but most of the people in my life who are working the 9 to 5 and who have the car payment and the mortgage payment and the mobile phone payment and the utilities payments and, you know, are living for the weekend. You know, they don't look very fulfilled and they don't look very happy. And it just doesn't seem like a smart choice to me now. It just doesn't seem like the intelligent thing to do. I sit here at a restaurant with a few of you guys and we're all smiling and happy and laughing and just enjoying our lives. And yeah, you know, I've worked really hard and I've had some really tough times in my life and I just want to enjoy it now. So I'm going to do the things that make me happy and that I enjoy without feeling any societal pressures or pushes from my family or to do what I should be doing, as they claim.
You know, the crazy thing about it is, I think in the beginning when we first move out, we don't really have a plan. You know, that's what everyone worries, and then everyone gives us kind of reasons and excuses why we shouldn't be doing it. And I think finally it took me way too long. I mean, to be honest, I should have done, you know, I think most people can adjust within a year or two, but it took me literally like 7 years or 6 years to be like, okay, well, I'm here now, and like now I'm actually making what I used to make back in, now I make a lot more than that, but it took me like 5 years to make back what I was making in the US working a normal job. And for those first 4 or 5 years, I was making like nothing. Like, you know, being a scuba diving instructor or doing Muay Thai does not pay very much.
Yeah, I remember there was that point where you were really broke. But we've all been through that, you know? It's part of the process.
Did you ever go to that crappy apartment that I lived in Chiang Mai that was across from that construction site?
Yeah, only once. And once was enough.
Man, I mean, so I'm actually ironically, I'm across from a construction site again now. But this condo is much nicer.
Yeah, it's definitely much nicer. It's definitely an upgrade.
And I'm mainly here because I can walk to Pun Space and there's a nice pool and all that too. But before I was in like this crappy Thai room, like almost like a prison cell. And I like at that time I don't think I was happy. Like I think I was optimistic, but I wasn't happy. Mm. And I was optimistic because I had just started doing CrossFit. And what was funny is I think at that time I was super, super into CrossFit and you are super not into CrossFit.
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of bullshit.
And I remember you coming to the gym and then saying, bro, I don't want to do CrossFit, but I want to use the facilities to do your yoga or something.
Yeah, I just wanted a small space to do some yoga.
So here are my thoughts about CrossFit.
Go for it.
All right. It got me in the best shape of my life. It was the only time in my life where I dropped to low enough body fat where I could start seeing abs. I had so much strength and so much energy, and I finally worked out in a way where I've always known I should write down my goals, or I should write down my workouts, I should keep track of things. I just never did it. I always knew I should lift heavy weights, and I should add weights every time I go. I just never did it. I always knew I should have a personal trainer. I just never bothered. And, my whole life I thought I knew how to lift weights. I think every stupid, male as we are, we get taught something when we're 13 and we're like, yeah, that's how you do it. We're going to do 3 sets of 10. We're going to warm up, do 3 sets of 10, and then we're going to do shoulders today, chest tomorrow, legs the day after, and abs on Thursday. And we just had, I had this idea of what exercise was. And the great thing about CrossFit is it kicked my butt, but also shattered my beliefs on what exercise should be. So it taught me, how to really push myself, and do an actual high intensity workout. It taught me to, that I should squat with barbells and do deadlifts and things like this. And on the yoga side, it was the first time I've ever done things like use a roller, like a foam roller, or use a lacrosse ball to roll out, or do these kind of functional stretches. Now, I stopped doing CrossFit, and I haven't done it in a long time, and I don't think I'm going to do it again anytime soon, because probably because of the reasons why you don't like CrossFit. So what are some reasons why you don't like CrossFit?
I mean, I don't even know if we have enough time to get through all of it. There's so much wrong with that system that the first off is I don't believe the human body is designed to be subjected to that kind of stress continuously. You are not made to be a workhorse that's supposed to go and put yourself through such traumatic, stressful, nausea-inducing workouts. It's just not. That's not the way we're designed. Anything that makes you want to vomit after you do it, and I know not all CrossFit workouts do that, but many of them do. Anything that makes you want to vomit is your body giving you a pretty strong message that you're not supposed to be doing that. The protocols that they use all violate, or many of them violate the foundational principles of sports science. When it comes to workout composition, you're not supposed to mix strength and endurance workouts together for various reasons. They use different energy systems. And when you do that, it causes overtraining syndrome and unnecessary fatigue. You're not supposed to do Olympic lifts for time. These are moves that are supposed to be done explosively for low rep numbers, not in high reps for time. If your form starts to get sloppy, and it will get sloppy if you're doing them for time, you will injure yourself. There's two kinds of CrossFit people: those that have injured themselves and those that are going to injure themselves. There's no doubt about it. It's super expensive as well. It's way more expensive than a regular gym. The instructors, you can get certified in CrossFit over a weekend. So you get these people who have never worked hard in their lives that are being taught to do a barbell snatch by some guy who's done a weekend course. I mean, that is a recipe for disaster. Then there's this weird cult-like aspect to the people who go to CrossFit. I just don't get it. It's just this weird attitude that I don't enjoy. They just kind of think they're way cooler than they are because all of a sudden they're swinging a kettlebell. And I just think that's kind of lame. I've always just felt that weird vibe around CrossFit. And I guess the main reason, and this is ultra subjective, most of what I've just said can be backed up through clinical studies and empirical research. My own subjective opinion is that I just don't feel good when I work out like that. I just feel much better when I do a good, long, composed, flowing yoga session, and maybe I do a little bit of strength training, or maybe I'll go for a swim or do a jiu-jitsu session or whatever. Those things all make me feel energized and good afterwards most of the time. Whereas I remember I did a CrossFit workout just on the whim of a friend a couple of years ago. I felt like crap for 3 days. I was sore and couldn't move properly, and I was like, I don't want to feel like that. And to talk about your point about it got you in the best shape of your life, and I remember you were in great shape, but it's just not sustainable. Like, A, you're going to get mentally and physically burnt out working at that level of intensity, or B, something's going to give. Your connective tissues, something's going to happen, or you're going to pull a muscle, or you're going to injure yourself by dropping weight, or so. Yeah, that's pretty much the tip of the iceberg of what I think is wrong with CrossFit. So,
all very, 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 very valid points, and I actually agree with pretty much all of it, to some extent or another. And here's the crazy thing: is knowing all that, I'm still glad I did it. Number one, but I would actually also still recommend it to people who need that jump start. But I do agree it's not a sustainable fitness regime. I would say, I always tell people, and even from the beginning, I knew focus on technique and form before the actual weights. But it's so hard when you're in that community and everyone's pushing. But it's also the reason why it works so well is when people, are yelling at you and you have a trainer and you have like 30 other people also doing, let's say, overhead presses for time or these crazy Olympic lifts for time. It's made me push my body so much harder than I ever would have on my own. And for short-term results, man, I was ripped. I was I felt so physically, I felt like Hercules, I really did. And I felt like I was part of this cool community of these type A personalities. And it came at the perfect time because that's when I first decided, like, hey, I'm going to start making money with some kind of online business. And that's when I think I had my book out. I had 12 weeks in Thailand out, and I just started my dropshipping store. And that kind of energy, and that network and all that pushed me to work my butt off. So I would wake up early, crush it at the co-working space, working on my store until 4, destroy it, at the CrossFit gym by doing whatever crazy, insane workout they were going to have me do. And then I would go to a buffet and destroy that because my body was just so exhausted from it. I would go home exhausted and just fall straight to sleep. And I did that, for a good six months, maybe almost close to a year, to be honest. And I was lucky I never had any major injuries. But you're right. Almost everyone I knew, got hurt from it, and I was pretty close to like hurting my back a few times, doing things I probably shouldn't have been doing. Swinging weights in a way I probably wasn't trained for properly yet. And I was pretty lucky. I actually had a good coach. He's no longer with that CrossFit gym, but he was actually a Olympic weightlifting coach. So I think that's the reason why I had such a good experience in the beginning, is because he actually was doing, proper form in Olympic weightlifting for 10 years before he became a CrossFit coach. But you're right, most trainers do get certified on a weekend, and they may not have had that other background yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you got something out of it, Johnny. And I have met the odd, well, the rare CrossFit trainer who is actually switched on and who does train people according to sound sports science principles, but it's pretty rare. And I mean, for anyone who's thinking about doing it, like, just do your research. We've got so much information available at our fingertips. You might want to also watch a few of the CrossFit fails videos on YouTube. I always find those quite entertaining.
But I would recommend, if you guys do end up doing CrossFit, is research the actual gym that you're going to go to. They call it a box. And read the reviews on it. And if there are a few people who are like 1 star, do not go to this place, destroyed me, not in a good way, don't just overlook it and think like, oh, they're just unhappy. Like, maybe there's kind of a reason for it. But yeah, fitness and diet's a crazy thing, because I remember, and I actually, so on the last 2 episodes ago, when I was with my cousin Jacob, we had talked about being on Koh Phi Phi, the islands in Phuket, and I briefly actually mentioned that you were there as well, and you're the first one that introduced me to a paleo type of eating, and you were super hardcore in it. I mean, like, literally, if you go back and listen to it, I have a story where Nick refused to eat anything on the boat and would rather like go hungry literally the whole day until dinner rather than eat like the rice or something that wasn't part of his diet.
Yeah.
But you were also ripped. You had like an 8-pack. You were in the best shape of your life. You were muscular and lean. And I mean, to be honest, when we were both eating that crazy strict diet, we were in much better shape than we are now. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd rather be fat and happy, bro.
Would you?
Dude, I think I just started to ask myself the question, first of all, that the way I was when we were in co-BP, the strictness of my diet was ridiculous. It was related to a bunch of stuff, spiritual and mental and emotional stuff that I've like to think I've worked through with regards to the way I appear and the way I act. It was all really quite closely interlinked. I guess the question I ask myself is, why do I want a 6-pack so bad, or why do I want to be so ripped so bad? And it's just vanity, dude. At the end of the day, admittedly, a lot of the times now my food choices are all based around health, and I don't feel healthy when I'm starving myself and I'm just feeling depleted because I haven't eaten any carbs for 4 days. I just don't feel healthy. I don't feel good. It's just it's too strict and too dry and too taxing. And I don't want to be that guy who's out at a restaurant with his friends and can't have anything because, there's no grass-fed beef on the menu, or like, who wants to live like that, dude? So now I don't follow paleo because that's the main reason. And also after thinking about it a bit more critically, I realized that a lot of the science that paleo is based on is flawed as well. Most Paleolithic people lived until the age of 20 if they were lucky. No one ever tells you that, cooked food and all the varied diet that the modern man has access to has resulted in a lot of positive things, So I just follow one basic principle when I eat, and that is I try to eat food as close to its natural state as possible. I know bread is a food product that's quite far from its natural state because it has a bunch of different ingredients and it's been prepared and cooked and baked and all the rest with several different compounds usually, especially if it's low quality bread. It's different if it's a super healthy rye bread that you got from somewhere, but even that, like, I try to eat these foods that have just one ingredient, if you follow me. So I know a good piece of steak, it can't have been tampered with too much. It just can't, because sure, it may have had a poor process to get to the supermarket. Like it might be a corn-fed animal or like mistreated, in which I try to avoid as well. But it's in general pretty untampered with. Whereas a box of breakfast cereal is pretty much as far from that as you can get. It's just had a bunch of crap added to it, and it's come out of a factory basically. So I find if you just stick to that one principle, eat your food as close as possible to its natural state, and eat, or try to eat food with as few ingredients in as possible. That's what I follow now. And sure, I don't have a 6-pack anymore, but man, I feel good and I have energy and I'm happy and, I'm content. And I think that's how I'd rather be.
And so I'm really glad we're talking about this. And what's crazy about podcasts is it really is a reflection on exactly the way that we feel and the way that we think at that moment. Especially mine, that I don't really edit any of the podcasts and I put it up pretty much the same day. So it's not like you're hearing something that we recorded 6 months ago. It's it's basically something we recorded today or yesterday. And things change. The journey really is a great name for your podcast because life is a journey. And if you listen to any of my old episodes, or if you met me when I was doing CrossFit, if you meet me 2 years from now, things change, And I think all we can do is really kind of share what's working for us currently.
Yeah, I agree. I met this guy in a cab. I took an Uber in LA a few weeks ago. And he said to me, I can't remember what the topic we were talking about was, but he said, there is nothing on this planet that isn't going to change. Mm-hmm. And that stuck with me. Everything. Your body, your relationships, your finances, political systems, economic systems, the environment, every single thing on this planet is going to change. And That's why I love yoga so much. It's something that it's an idea that I bring up in almost every podcast I do, my own podcast and the ones I appear on as a guest. But that's why I love yoga so much, is because I just feel that flexibility that yoga engenders in the body is quite rapidly translated into mental flexibility and flexibility in all areas of your life. I think that I notice, and it might just be a coincidence, but I doubt it. And when I was 20 or 25 and lifting weights and on the super strict diet and so focused on what I wanted in life and the way I thought things were, I was the most physically inflexible, rigid dude in town, and now that my lifestyle is very, very different and I'm focusing on things like yoga and I'm trying to be as open as possible to different things and just be as fluid as possible, I find that's reflected in my physicality. I'm physically much more flexible. And I think there's definitely a feedback loop with those things. And I know what kind of person I'd rather be, and it's definitely the latter as opposed to the former.
So let's talk quickly about the yoga hippie. All right, so that's one big swing on to the left or right of something, like going from on one side having the stiff person. Let's say let's kind of make the archetype. He's a businessman. Maybe he does CrossFit, and he's very regimented. He's all about money. He's all about power. He's all about about CrossFit. And then on the other side, you have the yoga hippie who is really chilled out. Is all about yoga, all about being flexible, mind and body, being all that.
Yeah, but he makes $800 a month and has to live on bananas and cornflakes.
Yeah, and maybe he hasn't showered in 6 days because he's like, that's nature, bro. Yeah.
So I would think that it's very interesting that you bring this up, because my mind works in similar ways. It always looks to categorize and stereotype. And it's a major shortcoming of mine. It has its benefits and it has helped me in certain ways, but I've realized of late that it's become more hindrance to me than anything. There is no need to label or put these things on a spectrum. There are many, many wealthy, successful businessmen who just do yoga, and there's many, many broke-ass punks who haven't showered, who lift weights 5 days a week. What I think is really important is, I just was speaking to a buddy of mine about this the other day. You've heard of the oracle at Delphi in Greece, right? Okay. There's an oracle, which was it's a place where you'd go and ask a question, and then you'd be given an answer. And it's really tied into the folklore and Greek mythology. And inscribed at this oracle in Delphi is, in Greek, the phrase, "Know thyself." I've been thinking about that more and more lately, because that is the way forwards, in my opinion. That is just knowing yourself. Then you're never going to get taken in by a scammer or a guy who's promising you this much, or you're never going to be doing the wrong type of exercise or eating the wrong kind of food or hanging out with the wrong kind of people, because intrinsically you know what's good for you and what resonates with you and what you have to do. If you know yourself, you can be your own guide, your own master. And I know that yoga is working for me now. It might not always be working for me. I might start feeling I need some more muscle mass or something at some point. And I might start lifting weights again, or I might get to a point where I feel yoga is doing my body harm and that my joints are unstable and I'm too flexible, and I don't want to be doggedly sticking to yoga, and I don't want to ever be like rigid in my thought patterns. So does that make sense to you?
It definitely makes sense. So just as a quick kind of fun exercise, list off some stats that you are like currently, like let's say, like how much money you're making, how much you weigh, how happy you are on a scale of 1 through 10, what all these stats, and then let's compare it to what you were like, let's say 2 years ago, and then what you want to work towards.
Okay, so I'm not going to give you any figures on how much money I'm making, but right now it's way more than it was when 5 years ago even.
So more or less than 2,000 a month.
Yeah, more than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So way more enough to be able to live location independently.
Yeah, I mean, I like, I'm comfortable. I don't want for anything.
Okay.
With regards to body weight, I mean, I don't have those stats because, again, something I'm trying to move away from as well is I don't want to be the guy who's measuring every single metric about his physiology every day and having to weigh his portion of brown rice because he wants to hit a 6.3% body fat percent. I just don't want to live like that anymore.
Okay.
And so I'll definitely say, like, I mean, I've looked in the mirror lately and I've been like, fuck, dude, where's your six pack gone, you know? And that's okay, dude. Like, I'm much more content. It's weird. The thing that I've been stretching and doing this intense yoga session every morning with my buddy Steve. We do literally 2 hours of stretching and yoga. And the metric that I'm most concerned about physically is my flexibility. Nothing makes me happier than seeing I'm getting more flexible. It's such a cool thing for me. Yeah.
So I have a question about that.
Go for it.
So I agree 100% that most people, including myself, are not flexible enough, and it holds us back from enjoying our bodies, enjoying life as much as we could. And when I was the last time I did yoga, I was back in LA for a month or so. And you know, this must have been a long time ago because I haven't been back in a year. But I did a session and I was like, man, I feel so freaking good. I'm going to sign up for an unlimited month pass because I'm going to be there for 2 or 3 weeks.
Nice.
And I did it, I did it every day basically that first week. And I felt so good that week. And then the next week came and I did it and I was like, okay, well, I'm getting better at it. I'm getting a little bit more flexible. But then I didn't get the same like overnight life-changing results and became this small thing again. So let me ask you, what is it about being, let's say, a little bit more flexible that actually makes you happy? And what purpose does it actually play? That's
such a good question. So there's a guy called John F. DeMartini whose work I really appreciate. He's a spiritual teacher that discusses finances and relationships and most major aspects of the human experience. And one of the things he teaches is that your values are the most powerful motivators or drivers of the actions you take in your life. And if you can identify what your values are and align those to your goals, it becomes possible to do pretty much anything. And one of the things I realized a couple of years ago, I was walking down, I still remember it as if it was yesterday, I was walking down Piccadilly in London, and this thought hit me out of the blue, which was that the highest value in my life is freedom. And anything that moves me towards freedom will make me happier, and anything that moves me away from it will make me less happy. And coming back to yoga, it's someone who spent a long time lifting weights and having people trying to strangle him while he's doing jiu-jitsu really left my body messed up, man. And I realized that physically, in my actual body, I wasn't free. There was, and I'm referring specifically to freedom of movement. My range of motion in many areas was compromised, and also I wasn't free from pain. I had a lot of pain in my body, and if I sat in one position for too long, I'd start getting stiff and tired, and I haven't sorted out completely yet, but it's become a lot better. And I find that with each of these intense stretching and yoga sessions that I do, my body becomes a little bit more balanced. I move a little bit more freely and more easily, and so that is really closely aligned to my values. And I hope that answers your question.
Oh, definitely. And do you think that it's specific? Like, I'm sure everyone will get some benefit from yoga. I'm sure a lot of people will get a lot of benefit from it. But do you think that, let's say there's someone who's never lifted weights, never had any bodily pain, it's always been kind of a limber couch potato. Do you think that they would get that much benefit out of it? As much as you?
There are certain, I mean, maybe not as much as I've got out of it, but there are certain systems of Hatha yoga which are very intense and very physical and have a lot of gymnastic style movements in them that will, I'd hesitate to say, get you as ripped, or maybe not as ripped as if you were doing high intensity CrossFit style exercise, But then again, after a while, CrossFit produces so much cortisol in your body that you're going to start putting on weight sooner or later. So maybe doing this yoga would get you more fit or get you in better shape than CrossFit. I know it would make you a much more balanced physical specimen than CrossFit will, or that kind of high intensity style exercise will. But again, you got to know yourself. Like, you got that couch potato guy. I don't know. Try CrossFit and try yoga and see what happens, man. Like, see which one you like best. See which one makes you feel better.
I would actually recommend, if you're going to do either, do both until you figure out what, until you know thyself, right?
Yeah.
Is do both. Do CrossFit Mondays, yoga Tuesdays, and repeat and figure out, like, is it the combination of the two that makes you happy, that makes you healthy, or is it one or the other? And I think for me personally, I think I finally kind of figured out what actually is good for my body. Now I need to just do it. And this could change, but I think for now, I actually should incorporate more yoga into my body, into my life. If I started using like a foam roller or a lacrosse ball, at least maybe let's say twice a week, and I did some yoga, my body would just feel better overall. I also get a lot of benefits from doing, like, let's say heavy squats and doing like a strong lifts 5x5 routine, which I'm doing now. For muscle wise, testosterone wise, I just feel like the beast kind of unleashes. And enjoy having the muscle mass, and I enjoy being strong. But I also need to do, like, let's say some kind of high intensity interval training, like CrossFit style, a Tabata or something, or some type of sprint. Let's say twice a week to get not only that, I don't want to call it cardio because it's not really cardio, but getting my heart rate up to a point where I'm really pushing myself.
Agreed.
But then maybe also once a week I need to go for a long walk. I just need to go for a hike or something. So there's so much, and even though I would say what I just described would actually probably work for most people, because it's kind of balanced. But if you're someone like Nick, that, let's say you had so much impact on your body from doing very high level jiu-jitsu for so many years, and so many knots and so many pains, maybe you should do a lot more yoga and a lot less strength training.
Yeah, and the only way you're going to know what you need is to know thyself, right?
So what are some ways for people to get to know themselves? I don't want to just put that out there. I really want actionable steps for people. Like, what are some tips that have helped you that other people can learn from?
Well, the first one is pretty easy, and that's just to get older. I mean, it's naturally going to happen more as the more you've been living in your skin, the more you're going to know about yourself. For me, the one, again, all my podcasts seem to start to sound the same. You know what I'm going to say. It's meditation. That is probably the quickest route to getting to know yourself. Maybe second only to putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. That's when you're going to very quickly find out who you are. Experience, just having more experiences. You can't know. I mean, I couldn't know that I don't like CrossFit until I tried CrossFit. Like, I couldn't know that yoga worked so well for me until I tried it. So I think it's a combination of all those things.
But freedom, as you mentioned earlier, I really think is the first step. So if you guys are locked down, either at, let's say, a bad relationship, a job that you hate, you're in debt, you're so overweight that you can't enjoy life, you can't even do any of these things, or otherwise, like, there's so many ways that we can lose our freedom, and be almost kind of self-imposed slaves to our world and our lives. That I really think that's the first step, and that's why I think this. I really enjoy talking about these things on the podcast. I think the reason why I talk about business so much is because I'm really excited about it. Because I mean, it's still new for me. It's almost like, I would say, business to me, online business to me, is similar to when I started with CrossFit. Where I finally found something that was giving me quick results, and that I can see, like, wow, I'm learning all these new things. This is super fun. Finally, like, there's a network of people who are also these type A personality achievers, and I see results finally. And I think after a while, I get a little bit, I guess you either move on, you kind of discover maybe that's not balanced for you, maybe I get a little bit kind of bored of it, to be honest. And I mean, so 2 years ago, I'd say I started CrossFit, before I started online business, I was in really bad shape, actually. And I think, you mentioned cortisol earlier. When I was doing Muay Thai full time, I was like really in bad shape, even though I was exercising way more than I do now. And I think you're right. And my body was just so damaged. And, from being forced to run, was it 3 to 5 miles per day on concrete, and then doing a 2-hour, 3-hour Muay Thai workout, and then hitting in these rock hard cement pads, and then sparring with people hard.
It's not good for you, bro.
And it was so bad for my body. I mean, honestly, like I was always bruised. I was always in pain. And I think that's shocking. People are asking me why I don't do Muay Thai anymore. And it's not because I didn't love it. I still really enjoy it. Sometimes I'll watch UFC and I'll fantasize and be like, man, like that was like, you feel like a freaking gladiator, And I'm so glad I did it, because it taught me so many things. It was a fun sport, but physically, like health-wise, not good for me at all.
Yeah, everything, as we said earlier, everything's going to change, and it was good for that point in your life. You can never look back on it with regret. You checked something out and you made it a part of your life, and you got something out of it. And just because you're not doing it now doesn't mean that that's gone for you. It's just a different part of your life.
And it doesn't mean that I didn't thoroughly enjoy it while I was doing it. I actually had someone message me on Facebook saying, really disappointed actually. He said that he's in the middle of reading my first book, 12 Weeks in Thailand. And he was so excited to basically quit his job, move to Thailand to do Muay Thai and scuba dive, and then live, be able to live for super cheap. And then he started following my blog, and he realized that, that I'm no longer happy with that. That he was so disappointed, thinking, man, like why am I even reading this book now? And I messaged him back, and I was like, hey, I'm so sorry if it seems that way. Like, I was genuinely happy. I was the happiest I've ever been during those first 4 years when I first started doing it. And it wasn't until I had been doing it for 4 years, and then I realized I was unhappy again. I guess I don't want to say over it, but I had grown past it. I had, after you go scuba diving 700 times, it's not as exciting as the first, 100 times you go.
Very true.
Same thing with Muay Thai. Like right in the beginning, like you do get in shape right in the beginning, and then you learn all these great skills. But then after 2 years or 3 years of doing it, and your body kind of gets destroyed, you don't enjoy it as much anymore. And so I want to kind of apologize to everyone out there if you think that, like, just because you read my second book or you read my blog now, that what I talked about in 12 Weeks in Thailand wasn't true, because it absolutely was during those first 4 years. And I would still actually, honestly, like, if someone is back in the US or back in London and they hate their jobs, and they had the choice to quit their job, move to Thailand, live as cheaply as possible, and then do Jiu-Jitsu as a white belt, or do Muay Thai as as someone just starting out, or scuba dive as a beginner, I would still recommend it. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's one of the classic pieces of advice or quotes, which is you're much more likely to regret the things you didn't do than the things you did do. When in doubt, I would say take the risk. The riskiest thing is trying to be safe, and sure, it might be difficult and dangerous and uncertain to pack up all your stuff and go visit somewhere or leave your job or whatever, but it could also be the best thing you've ever done, but there's no guarantee.
Would you do it over again? If you were a white belt again tomorrow, you woke up and you had zero knowledge and zero physical, nothing, and you basically started completely over, would you start jiu-jitsu again as a white belt, knowing how many years and how much hard work it would take for you to get back to your level?
Definitely.
You would?
Definitely, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, I like it.
Yeah.
I like you didn't hesitate at all. Nick, I'm glad you were on the show today.
Yeah, buddy, thanks. It was a really good conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. I know it's a little bit different than what we normally do, but I mean, these are the things that I think we always have in the kind of the back of our mind, maybe we talk about offline, but we don't really share it. It has nothing to do with travel really, doesn't have that much to do with business. But I think that overall, these are things that will kind of help guide people and realize life out here isn't all coconuts and swimming pools. We still have, you get a whole new set of things to think about. So sorry, if I was a little bit of a downer. I'm sure 2 months from now I'm going to be on top of the world again, because I have I'm currently creating a new course that I really think it's going to be kind of reignite my fire, because I really want to help other people be just as successful as I've been. And I've just been working 12-hour days trying to get it out there. So keep an eye out for that. Nick, if they want to get in touch with you and listen to your podcast and, read your books and check you out, how can they find you?
Best thing to do is go to thejourneypodcast.com if you want to listen to my podcast, or if you're a jiu-jitsu guy or you want to start training jiu-jitsu, check out jiu-jitsubrotherhood.com.
And Nick is one of the world's top black belts in jiu-jitsu. You've been a black belt for how many years now?
6
years. And I mean, he's legit. So if you wanna read the black belt blueprint, if you want to check out the Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood, definitely do that. Highly recommend it. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Nick, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.